Mr. Michael Sklar was saying about that 5:45 phone call. He forgot to tell you that he was trying to get hold of me for a few minutes. I was on another call at the time, and I saw him calling non-stop, calling. So I knew it was either incredibly good news or it wasn't such good news. The person who I was speaking to on the phone was the wife of Rabbi Chanoch Teller. I've been trying to get hold of him the last few days. We had corresponded by email. He asked me to call him, trying to get him to come and speak to us. And just then, I decided, just before we got this call, I decided I'm going to try again the house phone to try and get hold of him. And miracle of miracles, the call was answered. It wasn't answered by Rabbi Teller, but it was answered by his wife. So I introduced myself. There's a bit of a family connection. DC's first cousin is married to their son. I was chavrusas with their son in Kollel. And I started to explain to them a little bit what we do in Montain, what we're trying to do. And we have this lecture series that we try and get speakers to come in and speak. So she says, Rabbi Teller's not available at the moment, but she'll start taking down my details. So I told her my name again, I told her my phone number, and I told her I'm from Montain. So while she's writing, she says Montain Elite. So I'm quite used to this by now, that when you introduce yourself that you're from Montain and you look like this, that they say, I'm Montain Elite. So I said, no, it's Montain. She says, oh, okay. She says, I was in Montain with Rabbi Teller quite a number of years ago. They brought us out for a Shabbos. I don't know which community it was. And she said it was a very, very difficult Shabbos. And she starts telling me this story. She said that Rabbi Teller apparently wasn't in the shul at the time, but someone else got up to speak. Maybe it was before Musaf, after Shabbos, I'm not sure exactly. And he started going on and almost making a joke about the Torah, and about those that study the Torah, and about Talmidei Chachamim. And it was a whole humorous comedy, like a satire about those that study Torah and those that are too careful in keeping the mitzvahs of the Torah. And it bothered her tremendously. And she said she couldn't tell her husband. Her husband, I think, was preparing the share that he was supposed to be giving later during the day. And she said, it's been boiling within me, this feeling, since that time many years ago that I spent that Shabbos in Montain. And do you mind if I just give it over to you what I experienced? And she was going on about it and how much it disturbed her. She wanted to explode at the time. And for those 5 minutes that you were trying to get hold of me, she was going on and on about this event. Eventually, we got to the end of the conversation. I called Mr. Michael Sklar back. He told me the story that we would not have Rabbi Taub with us this evening. And I mentioned that, I'm happy if there's an interest to give over a shir in his place. And what Mr. Michael Sklar replied immediately is that he's very into this, because we don't cancel learning Torah. When it comes to learning Torah, we do not cancel. And even if we could have had a much greater and more prolific speaker than myself, but if it means, even if it's not the biggest crowd and it's not the biggest speaker, but it means preserving the event of Torah, then that's what we're going to try and do this evening. And I think it says a lot for the Sklars themselves, and I think it says a lot for everyone that's come here this evening, is that it's about the Ma'amad of Torah, it's about the Ma'amad of the event, of the study of Torah, that's really the subject and really the theme as we going towards this time of Kabbalas HaTorah. There's an Orach Chaim that asks a very basic question that we're all familiar with. Hashem's told us in Mitzrayim that He's going to take us out of Mitzrayim. Why? That we should be able to serve Him on the mountain. The that we're going to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the mountain of Har Sinai. That was the purpose, that was the tachlis, that was the whole goal. That's why he took us out of Mitzrayim. The Rachaim asks a question. And he says, if that was the whole goal, then why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu not take us directly from Mitzrayim and immediately bring us towards Har Sinai? We know that there was a time period of 49 or 50 days coming out of Mitzrayim until the event of receiving the Torah, until that event of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the mountain of Har Sinai. Why did he not take us immediately from Mitzrayim straight to Har Sinai? Why do we need that time period in between? And we all know the obvious answer to that question, as the Or HaChaim says himself. We were in Mitzrayim, we were in the Memtes Sharei Tumah, the 49th level of Tumah. And yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had taken us out, but there was a very important process that needed to happen in order to prepare us for that event of receiving the Torah. We couldn't just arrive on the scene straight away. We needed those 49 days to prepare. This is a well-known question and it's a well-known answer. But the Or HaChaim goes further and he asks a very interesting question. He says, I understand. There needs to be 49 days from Mitzrayim until Har Sinai, until Kabbalas Torah. But why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu need to take us around the desert for those 49 days? Couldn't he have just brought us to the foot of Har Sinai, placed us over there, and for 49 days we would undergo this preparation of getting ready for Har Sinai, this preparation of cleansing ourselves, of being matahar ourselves, that we'll be ready to receive the Torah? Why did we have to go around and around in the Midbar, camping here, camping there? Take us to Har Sinai, put us at the feet of Har Sinai, and we'll wait over there, we'll do the job over there, we'll cleanse ourselves, we'll work, we'll prepare over there. Answers the Or HaChaim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And he explains why. He says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love for Klal Yisrael was so strong, his anticipation for the Yom HaChuppah, for the wedding day of that unification between him and Klal Yisrael, was so great that to have the color, the bride of Klal Yisrael, at the feet of Har Sinai, next to the chuppah, with him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the chassan, right there, for 49 days, as if it would be too much for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to handle. His love was so strong that it would almost, if you can use the language, it would almost be a tease for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have the bride, Klal Yisrael, his beloved bride, right next to the chuppah, getting ready for the wedding, while he is waiting for that time. He couldn't have Klal Yisrael there. He couldn't bring them to the mountain. He had to wait. He had to tell Klal Yisrael, go hang around in the Midbar, don't come to the Yom HaChuppah until you're ready, because I can't have you there. There was something very unique about the Ma'amad of Har Sinai, about the event of Har Sinai. Yes, we received the Torah, but there was something much greater there. There was a unification of the color and the chassan that was going on over there. And that's what I want to explore a bit further this evening. There's another Or HaChaim, which is also perhaps a more well-known Or HaChaim, that he comments on a pasuk also to do with Klal Yisrael coming towards Har Sinai. The pasuk says, "B'chodesh hashlishi," in the third month, "V'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim," Klal Yisrael's having left Mitzrayim. "B'yom hazeh bo midbar Sinai." On that day, the beginning of the third month, Klal Yisrael came to Midbar Sinai, to Har Sinai, to the desert of Sinai. The next pasuk continues, "Vayisu miRefidim." Klal Yisrael left Refidim, "Vayavoyu Midbar Sinai," and they came to Har Sinai. The first pasuk says they came to Har Sinai. The second pasuk says they left Refidim and came to Har Sinai. And the obvious question is that the pasukim seem to be out of order. The first pasuk should say where they left, where they were traveling from, and they got to Har Sinai. And perhaps the second pasuk should say, and they were in Har Sinai, or they got to Har Sinai. But the psukim are out of order. It first told us we've arrived at the destination, and then it tells us that where we came from, where we had left. And the Orach Chaim discusses why the psukim did this. And he describes this very aspect that we were talking about before. There was such an anticipation for this moment of Klal Yisrael receiving the Torah that it's as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the writing of the Torah, wanted to describe the absolute, almost deliriousness of the world, of Hashem, of Klal Yisrael, and he confused the psukim in the order to show that love was so strong that Ava Mekalkeles es Ashur, that love can blind and love can confuse, and he confused the psukim to explain and to express this emotion that was in the air prior to Kabbalas HaTorah, prior to receiving the Torah. Again, this idea that the Ma'amad, the event of receiving the Torah, was an event of extreme love. It was an event that was of such anticipation, and was an event of the ultimate unity between Klal Yisrael and the Chassan HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What I'd like to discuss a bit further is to really get a deep understanding what was the event of Har Sinai, what was so special about it, what was the message, what was the underlying theme of Har Sinai that made us so deeply connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Last week's parsha starts off by Daber Hashem el Moshe b'midbar Sinai leimor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai, and the psukim continue describing the mitzvah of Shemitah, and it goes at length. It tells us all the different mitzvahs that are regarding Shemitah, and we all know there's a big question that Rashi discusses. We see in the whole Torah it says, "Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe leimor," that Hashem spoke to Moshe saying. All of a sudden we get to the mitzvah of Shemitah, and it says, "Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe b'Har Sinai leimor," that on Har Sinai this was told to Moshe. Ask Rashi, "Ma inyan Shemitah etzel Har Sinai?" Why are we specifically mentioning Har Sinai by the mitzvah of Shemitah, as opposed to any of the other mitzvahs in the Torah? And Rashi says like this. Rashi says that the mitzvah of Shemitah was taught in all its detail over here in Sefer Vayikra, in Parshas Bahar. Later on it's repeated in Sefer Devarim, and some of the details are left out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to teach us that all the mitzvahs, all the details of the mitzvah of Shemitah were taught in Har Sinai. So when he's teaching us all the details, he mentions Har Sinai. But later on, when he leaves out some of the details, he doesn't mention Har Sinai, to teach us that just as Shemitah was taught in all its detail on Har Sinai, so too the rest of the Torah was given and taught in all its detail on Har Sinai. This Rashi always bothered me, and I'll tell you why. I understand that the mitzvah of Shemitah was taught over here in Parshas Bahar in all its detail, and later on it wasn't, and over here it says Har Sinai, so it teaches us that all the mitzvahs were taught, that the mitzvah of Shemitah was taught with all its details on Har Sinai. But couldn't the Torah have chosen any other mitzvah? Let's take the mitzvah of Shatnez, for example. Teach the mitzvah of Shatnez in all its detail, mention Har Sinai over there. Leave out a detail or two later on in a different parasha. Don't teach Har Sinai over there. And I'll learn the very same lesson, that just as the mitzvah of Shatnez was taught in all its detail on the Har Sinai, I'll know that all the other mitzvahs were also taught in all its detail on the Har Sinai. Why did the Torah choose the mitzvah of Shemitah to teach us that everything was taught on Har Sinai? There seems to be a deeper connection beyond what Rashi is saying. There seems to be a deeper connection between the mitzvah of Shemitah and the event of Har Sinai. Now, I have an interesting custom Erev Pesach to, sometimes I forget, but usually I try and remember to give my sister a call before Pesach. Because there's this family joke that at the Seder, every single year as children growing up, my sister would ask the same question at the same point at the Seder, year after year, even twice during the same year in Chutz La'aretz, and she'd read out the same answer year after year. And I'd call her before Pesach, just remember at your Seder, now she's a mother of 6 children, remember to ask a question. What is the big question? It's a famous question. When we're saying or singing Dayenu, we say in the Dayenu that Ilu Kirvenu Lifnei Har Sinai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have just have brought us to Har Sinai, V'lo nasan lanu es haTorah, and He would not have given us the Torah. Dayenu. Just HaKadosh Baruch Hu bringing us to the mountain, bringing us to Har Sinai, and stopping over there, not giving us the Torah, that would have sufficed. And the obvious question is, what is the point of bringing us to Har Sinai without giving us the Torah? What is Har Sinai without the Torah? Seemingly, Har Sinai was just a geographical location in which Hashem chose that on this mountain you're going to receive the Torah. What is the point of coming to Har Sinai? What is the point of coming to Har Sinai without receiving the Torah? To such an extent that those are one of the things we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu on one of the holiest nights of the year. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just for bringing us to the mountain of Har Sinai. The Kli Yakar in last week's parsha points out 3 similarities between Har Sinai and the mitzvah of Shemitah. Similarity number 1. Prior to Har Sinai, we had the 49 days of counting, the 7 weeks, culminating in the 50th day when we actually received the Torah. It says similarly in Eretz Yisrael, with the mitzvah of Shemitah, we have that same counting of 49 years, culminating in the 50th year of the Yovel, the 7 times 7, the 7th, thank you, the 7 times 7 years of the Shemitah. That's similarity number 1. We see that there's a similar build-up, there's a similar counting that exists, counting up to receiving the Torah, as we have when it comes to living in Eretz Yisrael, the mitzvahs of Shemitah, culminating in the mitzvah of Yovel. Similarity number 2 is that we know that there was a Kedusha that existed on Har Sinai when we received the Torah. Not anyone could just go onto Har Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu could go to the top, and there was a whole hierarchy how it could be. But the actual land of Har Sinai was infused with holiness, infused with Kedusha. This we see similarly when it comes to the years of Shemitah and the years of Yovel in Eretz Yisrael. The land has a Kedusha. The land has a Kedusha to such an extent that there's an Isur to sow, to plant, to reap, to work the land every 7 years, the 50th year. That is the second similarity, the Kedusha of Har Sinai and the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. The Kedusha of Har Sinai that forbade certain activities on the mountain, and the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael that also forbids certain activities on the land of Eretz Yisrael. The third and last similarity that he draws between Har Sinai and Shemitah is that on Har Sinai, the Chazal describe that the pasuk says that it was Charus al haluchos, that the 10 commandments were engraved on the luchos. Chazal say don't read it Charus, read it Cherus, that there was an element of freedom that Klal Yisrael reached upon receiving the Torah. They became those B'nai Chorin, was the culmination of the Cherus of Mitzrayim, the B'nai Chorin of Har Sinai. So too in the 50th year, with the Tkiyah Shofar that also resembles the Tkiyah Shofar of Har Sinai, we see that same freedom, the freedom of the slaves, the freedom of the lands going back. Those are the 3 similarities. The 49 counting, the Kedusha of the land, and the freedom of the people in Har Sinai to the freedom of the slaves in the land of Eretz Yisrael. We're already starting to see that the event of Har Sinai has some essential connection to the mitzvah of Shemitah. But it's not just the event of Har Sinai that has that connection. We're going to see that even the people that were at Har Sinai are somehow connected to the people that keep the mitzvah of Shemitah. How is that? There's a medrash by Rabbi that makes a drosha of a pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk in Tehillim says like this: Baruch Hu Hashem Malachav Giborei Koyach Oise Devara Lishmoya B'Kol Devara. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu shall bless Malachav, his angels, Giborei Koyach, those that are powerful with strength, Oise Devara, that perform his word, Lishmoya B'Kol Devara, to hear the voice of his word. The pasuk is describing angels, the performers of his words, but the pasuk doesn't really tell us who David HaMelech is busy praising. Who are the Giborei Koyach? Who are these mighty people of strength? Who are the Malachov? Who are the angels that we're saying Baruch Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shall bless them? So the Medrash brings different opinions about who this pasuk is referring to, and I'd like to pick out two opinions of that Medrash. The first opinion says like this: B'shoimrei shvius hakasav medaber. That this pasuk is talking about those that keep the Shemitah, those Giborei Koyach, those mighty warriors that keep the Shemitah. That is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that he would like to bless, or David HaMelech is saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless. And the Medrash explains, sometimes we wake up in the morning and say, it's going to have a good day today, we're going to make sure to get to davening on time. We wake up, get going, get to davening, we arrive at davening on time, great. And we think that's it, we're going to keep on going. And the Medrash says, yes, maybe you'll do it first day, second day if you're really into it. If you're superhuman, you might keep on going for the whole week, a month if you're very, very lucky. But who's going to keep at the same thing for a whole year? Who's going to keep at the same thing when that same thing means literally losing everything you have for a whole year? Watching your field go desolate, losing your parnasa. Says the pasuk, that is the Giborei Koyach. Those are the mighty warriors. The Gvura are those people that can withhold themselves, not just every day, not just every week or month, but for an entire year. Those are the super warriors that David HaMelech wants HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bless. But there's a second opinion. Rabbi Huna b'shem Rav Acha Amar, B'Yisrael she'amdu lifnei Har Sinai hakasav medaber. The pasuk is talking about those people that were standing at Har Sinai. How is that so? Sheikdimu asiya d'shmiya. We all know that when Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was offering them the Torah, we said Naseh v'nishma. We first said Naseh, that we will do, and only then did we say v'nishma, we will hear. And if you look carefully at this pasuk that we're talking about, the order is very much the same. Oise devaro, we will do, they do his word. Lishmoya, to hear, but called devaro, the voice of his word. The people that David HaMelech is trying to praise are people that do, and only then do they hear. That they makdim, they precede Naseh, and only afterwards is there the nishma that follows. Two opinions in a medrash trying to explain the same pasuk. We see a connection between not only the mountain of Har Sinai and the land during the years of Shemitah and Yovel, but we see that there's a connection between the people of Har Sinai and the people that keep the Shemitah. It's not a similarity just in the event, it's not similarity in the land, but it's a similarity in the character of the person. The Giborei Koyach Oise Devara, those mighty people, those that do before they hear, that is a similarity that exists between those that are at Har Sinai and those that keep the Shemitah. But what really is it about Har Sinai that we commemorate? What is it about Har Sinai that we say that Ilu Kiranu Hashem Lifnei Har Sinai, if HaKadosh Baruch would have just brought us there, that would have been enough? What is the essence of the event of Har Sinai? The pasuk in Devarim says, "Ata hareisa ladas ki Hashem hu Elokim ein oid milvado." There was something else that happened at Har Sinai besides receiving the Torah. Ata hareisa ladas. Klal Yisrael, you saw something. You saw ki Hashem hu Elokim. You saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You saw that the nature is being run by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is Elokim. Ein oid milvado. There's nothing else besides him. That is what the event of Har Sinai was. Yes, we received the Torah there, but there was something else that was going on there as well. And the Derech Hashem says, we mentioned it last time I spoke here, the Derech Hashem says it's from that event of Har Sinai where we draw our faith, where we draw our emunah. It's not from Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's not from the Nisim that happened, not from the Makkah, it's not from Chiyas Yamsuf, it's from what Klal Yisrael saw at Har Sinai. That is where we derive our emunah from. It's the Ata Hareisa Ladas Ki Hashem Hu Elokim Ein Oid Milvado. That's where we're getting our emunah from. That is the essence of Har Sinai. What's the essence of the mitzvah of Shemitah? So there's a big discussion amongst the Mefarshim. Some of the Mefarshim explain that it's really for the good of the land. If we work the land too much, it's not going to produce. We need to have a year that we just do nothing, so that the land will rest, it will regain its strength and its minerals, and it's good for agriculture. That's what one of the Mefarshim say. Another one of the Mefarshim explain that it's like Shabbos. It's Zeichel L'Maaseh Bereishis, to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Same day that we have a 6-day working week, 7th day we rest and remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. We also have a 6-year working cycle, and in the 7th year we sit back and try and contemplate that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Says the Kli Yakar that those reasons can't be. It says we don't need 2 days. We don't need 2 days of Shabbos. Once we have Shabbos, we don't need another example, another experience of a 7th year to reiterate the same message. The Kli Yakar explains that the mitzvah of Shemitah is a mitzvah of emunah. It's a mitzvah where we're able to, with our bare hands, to see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. The mitzvah of Shemitah and the event of Har Sinai is very, very deeply linked because they both have the same common thread running through them. Har Sinai was the event. It's the source of our emunah. Shemitah is where we see that emunah in practice. We see that when we withdraw our hands from the field and we just let HaKadosh Baruch Hu take care and we have trust in him, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be running the show and not us. That is the deep connection between Shemitah and Har Sinai. It's a deep connection between the people that keep the Shemitah and the people that were experienced and said Naaseh v'nishma on Har Sinai. And I think, to conclude, that explains a very difficult Gemara in Brachos that reads like this. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ami mishmei Ula. So says Rabbi Chia bar Ami in the name of Ula. Gadol hanene miyagiyoi yoiser miyarei shamayim. Great is a person that benefits from the labor of his hand than someone who has fear of God. Now this Gemara is mind-blowing. Someone who has Yiras Shamayim, he's the ultimate. Surely there's nothing greater than someone who has reached that level. We can say that he has Yiras Shamayim, and when the Gemara is talking about a Yiras Shamayim, it's the Gemara's standard of a Yiras Shamayim. And not only that, he says that someone who is benefiting from the labor of his hand, we're not even comparing Ruchnius with Ruchnius. We're not saying that someone who has Avas Hashem is greater than someone who has Yiras Shamayim. We're not saying that someone who is an Onav is greater than someone who has Yiras Shamayim. We're saying that someone who works and benefits from the labor of his own hand, something very material, something very mundane, is greater than the highest level, seemingly, that a Jew could even reach in this world, a Yiras Shamayim. But I think in light of this idea of the essence of the mitzvah of Shemitah being emunah and its connection to Har Sinai, we can understand a little bit more this Gemara. Someone who is nene miyagiyoi, someone who labors and he benefits from that, he's able to see that when he puts in his effort, sometimes it will bear fruit. But often, and very often, it doesn't. He's also able to see that sometimes where he doesn't put in any effort, that's where he sees the bracha. Hanene miyagiyoi, with the right perspective, with the perspective of a shmita, with the perspective of emunah, that's not just a yiras shamayim, which is perhaps in his mind, which is in theory. Hanene miyagiyoi is living the reality of emunah. It's living the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu running this world. He's able to see. If he's got the right pair of glasses on, he's able to see God's existence in his daily life. Hanene miyagiyoi is able to reach greater places than someone who's just yiras shamayim. There's a well-known quote from Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta would quote, we know the pasuk says, "V'yodata hayom hashivoisa el levavecha," that you shall know and you shall place it into your heart. And he would say that the gap in between the not knowing and the knowing, and the knowing and the placing into your heart, one would think not knowing and knowing is a huge gap. If you don't know anything and now you know a certain idea or material, before you knew 0, now you know perhaps 80. In the implementation of that, needs an extra push, an extra 20, making it real, making it something that you live with, needs an extra push. Says Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, no. The gap in between not knowing something, not understanding it, or without having the knowledge of a concept, and then having the knowledge of that concept, it's the same gap that exists between knowing that concept and the implementation of that. Gadol hanenem yagiyoi. Great is a person who has the opportunity to work and to see that emunah and to inculcate it and internalize it within himself, greater than a yiras shamayim, because he's able to internalize something, he's able to bridge that huge gap in between knowing that Hashem exists and living with that existence. Thank you.